Welcome to the Talk Like a Leader podcast, where we explore the mindset, skill set, and habit set of leadership communication. Using these tips, techniques, and tactics, you'll be able to talk like a leader to build better relationships and get more done. Your host is Guy Harris, who has more than 20 years of combined professional and military experience in consulting, coaching, and training in areas like team and interaction dynamics, communication strategies and tactics, as well as emotional intelligence. Take it away, Guy.
Hi, this is Guy Harris. Welcome to Talk Like a Leader. This week's episode is titled Facilitate Connection. Now, the idea for this podcast episode came as I was leading one of our Bud to Boss workshops earlier today. The specific session in question was related to leading at a distance or leading a remote team. So leading in a world where not everyone is co-located. Your team is spread out, some working from home, maybe some are in the office. Whatever the situation, you're not all in the same place. And one of the slides in the Bud to Boss workshop that talks about remote leadership or leading at a distance has a phrase, be a communication conduit, or be a person who facilitates conversation. And that led to a discussion with the participants about what that really means. So I thought it'd be important to share with you because we are now in a world where many leaders are in hybrid or totally remote type leadership situations, and they don't see their team members every day. And maybe even more importantly, their team members don't see each other every day. A lot of the discussion about communication, a lot of the episodes in Talk Like a Leader have been focused on your direct communication with other people. Your changes in tone, body language, word choice, your focus, your approaches, your behaviors, so that you can be a more effective communicator. In addition to your direct communication, an important leadership role is to make sure that communication happens on your team as well. And when everyone is all in the same place, a co-located team, there are many things that are sort of organic so that information can flow in ways the leader isn't even aware that it's flowing. The incidental conversation in the hallway, the fact that people bump into each other at the coffee pot, the fact that their desks are close to each other, that they overhear things. There are lots of cues and clues that help people share information. Now, that incidental and informal sharing of information certainly isn't perfect or complete or sufficient for high-level team functioning. It's just that it is part of how people connect in the workplace and how information moves around and how people know what's being worked on, what the focus is, what the end goal is, what needs to be done, what hasn't been done yet, those kinds of things, how they can help each other, what information other team members are missing, or what skills do people need help on. When we're not in the same place, all of that organic interaction goes away. And so as a leader in a remote or leading at a distance or leading a hybrid team kind of situation, you want to make sure that you're doing something to facilitate some of that informal communication, that connection between people. You are mindful that the communication that happens in your team isn't completely from you to your team members and from your team members to you. It's also between each of them. And if you want to grow a team that is high functioning, that gets things done, that has high trust between team members, that has as little conflict friction as possible, you want to take steps to make sure that incidental contact and communication between your team members happens. Now, the first step in this is to be aware that it's not going to happen accidentally, and to recognize that you bear at least partial responsibility for making sure it happens. Now, we could live in a utopian world where we just assume that people are talking with each other, and that would be unwise, because we don't live in a utopian world where people just remember to talk to each other. They forget, not because they're bad people or because they don't care. It's easy to forget. I shared an example in our Bud to Boss workshop today about information sharing between my daughter and my wife and I. It happens sometimes that she will tell me something and I will just completely forget to tell my wife. Not because I think my wife doesn't care or not because I'm trying to keep information from her. I talk to my daughter or get a text message from my daughter at a time when I'm working on one thing and I don't see my wife for several hours and I just don't think about it. And it happens for her too. She'll hear things from my daughter. She won't tell me. And then my daughter assumes that we both know. Well, it doesn't always happen. That happens a lot of the time. It doesn't happen every time. Well, the same thing happens on your team. You talk to people on your team. You might historically, because you've been in a co-located situation, realize that information just flows between people. So you kind of expect that to happen, and it doesn't. Because they don't see each other. They don't bump into each other. And you could make sure you're talking with everyone and that you're the point of contact for everything, and your schedule will get full. You won't be able to manage all the communication. So one of the things you can do is to make sure you facilitate connection between your team members. Now, as a team grows and people get to know each other better, and if they've been working together for a long time, probably some of this continues to happen because they know each other and they're comfortable reaching out to each other. Early in the team formation, though, that might not be true. If you have new team members or if roles change or anything happens to upset the team dynamic, you can have breakdowns in communication because people just don't talk to each other that much. They don't see each other and the incidental doesn't happen. So how can you facilitate connection between your team? One of the things you can do is you can sit back as leader of the team, knowing at least a good chunk of the communication that needs to happen. You probably don't know everything. You're probably going to know a lot of it, though. You're probably going to have a higher level view than individual members of the team might. And you might recognize that one member of the team has information that another member of the team needs. Well, you could just say, oh, great, John knows this thing that Sally needs to know, so I'll make sure I tell Sally. And that is one way to manage it, and you've made yourself the focal point of communication as opposed to the conduit or connector for communication. I think a better and more leadership way to do it would be to tell John, hey, John, you and I just talked about this issue. I think Sally needs to know some of this, or I think Sally might have a perspective on this. Do you think you could reach out to her and share this information with her or get her perspective on it? And the idea here is, while you could be the focal point or you could call a three-way conversation, and there will be times when that's necessary, another tool in your toolbox could be just to suggest that the two of them talk without you present. Give them a chance to share information with each other, get to know each other, know how to work together better without you being in the room, so to speak. So this week, I suggest you think about how you can facilitate connection, not only how you can share information or how you can change your behaviors to communicate better with your team. Think about ways that you can facilitate connection within your team so that communication happens even when you're not present. If you can do that, you can talk like a leader. This has been the Talk Like a Leader podcast. You can listen to this show every week wherever you get your podcast. If you haven't, be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. I'm Guy Harris, and thanks for listening.